Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. I'm Zemo, the Grim Daddy himself, and I do apologise for my lack of updates as of recently. I have been unwell, and my internet has taken a massive dive into the crapper. I'm waiting for an engineer to fix it. So yeah, getting footage for stuff has been an absolute nightmare. But we have today's video. Now, DBD has released a patch sum up that will be coming this Tuesday on what they discovered from the PTB and what they've changed. So we're going to discuss that today and, get an idea of what we think about it. So first off, they're talking about Onryo and what they did and how they were going about it. So if you don't know, in the PTB, whenever Onryo would hook you, any condemned stacks that you had would become locked in. Now, what they've wrote here, what they found with this is that if you had a survivor who had a load of condemned stacks and you then hooked them, you would then be encouraged to tunnel them because their hook state basically locks in their stacks. They've changed that to locking in the stacks to 4. So if you have 4 stacks of condemned and you get hooked, you will permanently have 4 stacks of condemned. Now, the problem I'd have with this is that they retain all stacks of condemned that they had at that point, but they can lose stacks down to 4 basically from this point. Problem that being, this does not discourage tunneling like they've put here. If you have somebody that you've hooked who has 7 stacks of condemned, when they come off the hook, they have 7 stacks of condemned. So you're going to do some teleporting and get them to the max stacks of condemned and then insta-kill them. The problem I have with this idea is that tunneling implies that you will focus someone and hook them 3 times. Would you call a Tombstone Myers tunneling someone? Oh, I focused on this person and insta-killed them. It's not tunneling if there's an insta-kill mechanic. It is just killing them. Am I alone in that? Like, hooking them again would, again, lock in their condemned stacks previously, but it doesn't make a difference. If someone's near being killed with condemned, you're going to focus on them and stop them from getting tapes and stop them from getting TVs. It doesn't benefit you to focus on the other people. It really doesn't. All it really does here is say that once you get 3 condemned stacks, you should go and get a tape and run it down. I just don't get the logic, and it doesn't make sense to me. Whether it's going to make Onryo weaker, I don't really know. Then we've got the projection spamming. One of the awkward playstyles we want to address and update is the dominant strategy of teleporting as much as possible to quickly spread condemned. We'd hope limiting the range of condemned to powered TVs would address this and allow us to remove the projection cooldown. However, some crafty Onryo players discovered that you could intentionally teleport to the wrong TVs in order to spread more than 1 stack of condemned to survivors near heading towards a powered one. Clever. Now, this is the part I have a lot of exception with. Some crafty Onryo players discovered. What the fuck did they think was going to happen? In my previous video on the actual original patch notes of this, that was exactly what I said was going to happen. Like, that's not crafty, that's common bloody sense. What did they expect people were going to do? It doesn't make any sense here. It really does not make any sense. So, now, we've read a lot of positive comments saying that she feels better to play without a cooldown on teleporting. So we do not want to bring it back. Instead, we have made the following change. The power meter recharges over a course of 10 seconds. Sorry to break your bubble behavior, but that's a fucking cooldown. We didn't want to bring back a cooldown, so we added a cooldown. But we're not calling it a cooldown, therefore it's not a cooldown. No, it is a cooldown. That's what a cooldown is. It is a cooling down period. What the fuck is wrong with them? Like, it's so stupid. They're like, we didn't want to add a cooldown, so we added a cooldown. Am I insane? Are they insane? This is stupid. It's stupid. Now, if the power meter is full, projecting will inflict 1 stack of condemned to any survivor near a powered TV. They empty the power meter. If the power is not full, projecting will not inflict condemned. So it's still a cooldown for the intention of teleporting to the other TVs. Like, they didn't add a cooldown to the teleporting mechanic, they added a cooldown to the condemn mechanic, which is the primary reason you would be teleporting to TVs that don't have survivors at it. The whole point of that playstyle was you'd have lethal pursuer, you'd see them, and you go, right, well, I'll teleport to that TV, then I'll teleport to that TV, that TV, that TV, that TV. Like, granted, I do agree that they have fixed that from being a problem, and I did think that was going to be overly strong. But to claim they've not added a cooldown is still adding a cooldown. The full power of Sadako isn't there. So don't piss in my leg and tell me it's raining. It's like you've added a cooldown because there's no point in teleporting to a TV that isn't one of the TVs that you know survivors are at unless you're getting condemned stacks. So yeah, like I think the entire logic of their Sadako changes is flawed. Whether it's going to be better for survivors to go up against or whether it's going to be better for people to play as, I mean, I'll save that opinion for when I actually get to play it. I never got to play on the PTB, but I definitely think there is some interesting changes here, and hopefully she's still playable. But I just the logic behind it is a bit backwards in my opinion. So next up, we're talking about Blight. Now, the first one is the Compound 33 change, where they've changed it from a 33% turn rate to 11%, and they've also reduced the required rush distance from 4 to 3 meters, and the effect can only stack up to 3 times. So I'll be honest, I don't really know much about Blight. I didn't face this, so I can't rightly say. But at the same time, any nerf to Blight is, in my opinion, a slightly good change because he is one of the strongest killers in the game. Don't get me wrong, if you've got a bad Blight, they are shite, but if you've got a good Blight, you have very little counterplay in a lot of cases against it. Now, the next one I do have an opinion on, the Iridescent Blight tag. Now, if you didn't know, it pretty much just gave you an endless supply of rushes, and if you landed a hit, you would then get a cooldown. Now they've changed it to a rush attack, successful or missed, failing to slam, or breaking a pallet with the Blight tag will now cause his power to go on cooldown. So essentially, you still have an endless supply of rushes, but if you are missing like bumps, if you are breaking anything, if you're hitting anybody, then it goes off. I still think this is probably going to still be really, really strong. I don't think this is nerfing it as much as they think it is, but I could be wrong about this. I definitely think this is a minor change to it rather than like a significant change. I think giving them infinite rushes was always going to have some, yeah, some very interesting things. But again, we'll need to wait and see. I mean, if the Blight is breaking stuff, doing different things, if they can't rush around a pallet, they're kind of forced to do it. So there is, in some instances, where this will be fine, but there's some instances where this will still be absolutely overpowered and broken. Then we have Adrenaline Vial. Originally, this add-on provided many positive effects, making it a jack of all trades. In the PTB, we simplified the add-on by removing some of the effects. This left the add-on weaker than we'd like, so we've made the following changes. We have removed the turn rate penalty. It was minus 55%, and we have reintroduced 5% rush speed bonus. Was 10%. So, did they kind of revert this back to what it was? I mean, without telling us exactly what the whole thing does, it's difficult to really understand what this does. Like, it says it's weaker, but I don't know. I don't know if this is in the wrong direction or the right direction. Because granted, I don't want Blight to be nerfed into a point where people can't play him because he's shite, but at the same time, this feels like maybe they went back in the direction because Adrenaline Vial was the one that a lot of people complained about. If I'm remembering correctly, that's the one if you hit somebody with your last rush, it regenerates. So if it's got these on top of that ability with the Iridescent Blight tag, it's still going to be like, does it skip the cooldown? I really don't know. I don't know the interaction between these two to add-ons, so that could still be pretty strong. I mean, what do you guys think in regards to it? So, next up, we're with the Hillbilly. So, on the PTB, these add-ons reduce the recovery time for 6 chainsaw hits. This understandably didn't provide much benefit in most cases. They now reduce recovery time from using the chainsaw, not just successful hits by 8% and 12% respectively, was 10 and 15%. I'll be honest, any buff to Billy is a good buff. So I'm happy that, you know, they're not just buffing this to help successful, but also when you miss. So that's definitely quite cool for the Grease Throttle and Thompson's mix. Then we've got Thermal Casing and Ragged Engine. Simple number tweaks on these. Thermal Casing and Ragged Engine now decrease the speed at which heat dissipates when not using the chainsaw by 20 and 30% respectively, was 10 and 15. And then the discarded air filter. These two add-ons increase the time it takes before overdrive starts dissipating, with increasing numbers from these to 20 and 30% respectively, was 15 and 20%. So yeah, again, I think Billy has been desperately needing a buff, and there's a lot of Billy mains out there that will be jumping with joy that they're getting more stuff buffed to their favourite character. And I definitely think it's deserved. Billies are some of the funnest players to go up against, and usually have quite what's the word? Good attitude, and are jolly and lovely. I've had a lot of really positive experiences with Billy players in the past, so I'm glad to see that they're getting rewarded by the way that they play. Yeah, all good there. So now we're on to the perks. Now, what I'm going to say about this is that, I'll be honest, save the best for last. I think this is a negative change, and I think they should have just left it where it was. So essentially what save the best for the last would do on the PTB is that whenever the Obsession took a health state worth of damage, it would remove the killer's save the best for last stacks by 2. Now this could be used in ways like running into trapper's traps, plot twisting, and then healing, and then plot twisting, and then healing, and then plot twisting, and you can take all the killer stacks away. Now, the thing about this is, it would require them to bring these very specific perks. The ones that come to mind are For the People, plot twist. Yeah, well, that's the ones that come to mind. So essentially, that's 2 perks that the Obsession would need to be running in order to get any real use out of these silly mechanics. Now, granted, on a killer, you could use Deep Wounds to bleed out and then get somebody to pick you up. That's another method of doing this, but it's a very niche situation and a very niche mechanic that also requires you to waste your own time for bleeding out and then to have someone pick you up. Like, someone would have to pick you up at that point, otherwise you're just going to get hooked or you're going to be doing nothing. So I think they've fixed a problem that didn't really exist here. I don't think the previous iteration of Save the Best Last had killed it in any way, shape, or form, but it did make you worry that the Obsession was going to do some silly shit. But this change just feels like all it's really done is bring Save the Best for Last in line with killers like Trapper or the Clown, where their only option is to M1. So they would, if they M1 the Obsession, they'd lose their stacks regardless. So now Nemesis and Demogorgon and Alien are losing their stacks regardless of what they do. And if that's what they meant to do, then fine. But if it wasn't what they meant to do, then why did they add it when the Obsession loses any health state? This is the real factor here. It's still a case of, it's still going to be used a lot. It doesn't feel like they really nerfed it. On killers where it is really good, it is still incredibly good. So I just disagree with this change. I think the only counterplay that really existed was being able to plot twist and For the People and then, you know, have that shenanigans. But now it's literally saying, yeah, the Obsession has to deliberately run in the way of the killer. And that was the case before. So it's just back to that case again. It feels like a non-thing. Again, it's going to stop M2 killers from using it quite as often because they're not going to get the same value out of it as they did before. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to stop people that M1 a lot anyway. Now, next up, we have Quick Gambit. And the PvE features a change for Quick Gambit, it changed its effective range, blah, blah, blah. Quick Gambit now provides 6, 7, and 8% repair bonus speed within 36 meters. Now, this, I think, is a positive change. I think Quick Gambit is a perk that you don't see often. But if you're able to brave the area in which the killer's in, and repair generators, combine this with things like resilience, and other gen rush perks, I definitely think it's going to be a positive boost to that. And definitely I hope to see it in more builds on people who are very good at running killers. Either way, it is, you know, an interesting perk and a positive change. Now, the last bit of the patch notes is essentially just a nothing burger. There's just a couple of things that they're going to be watching, like the Grim Embrace Deadman Switch combo, where it basically causes the generators to be untouchable for quite a while. There's also the generator changes that they didn't really get a chance to test properly because they were disabled mid PTB. So the whole 8 gen regression events thing might be changed more or less in the future. We don't really know how it's going to be, and they're obviously going to be keeping an eye on Onryo and Hillbilly, but they're quite happy with their Blight changes. What I'd say about this is that, yeah, they should be watching these kind of things. There are very big game mechanics afoot, but I think with what they're doing to avoid you damaging gens and doing like free genning and things like that, I think Grim Embrace Deadman Switch, or rather Grim Embrace, is probably going to be part of the meta. I think there's going to be a kind of gen regression renaissance of some sort happening in Dead by Daylight, where people will be playing around with that and seeing how much they can regress generators without actually interacting with them. But we will see how that goes when it happens. It'll definitely be interesting to see what people cook up and figure out. And then we've got one last thing to talk about, which I am excited for, but at the same time, not sure how it's going to go. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is the new game mode thing that they're going to be adding that will be a limited time event called Lights Out, where essentially the game is going to be dark as all hell and you're not going to be able to see very far in front of your face. Now, what I will say about this is 100% in this game mode, it's going to be all about aura reading. 100% about aura reading. Killers, survivors are both going to find advantages in this, and certain killers are going to do incredibly well in it. Certain killers will definitely not. Pardon me. But essentially, I think it really falls down to what's going to be allowed and what's going to be allowed to be played in it. For example, Scratch Mirror Myers in that game mode is going to be flat out disgustingly horrifying, and if I'm allowed to play that, I'm going to play that. It's going to be Scratch Mirror Myers a lot. I will spend so many blood points looking for those mirrors. It's going to be so fun. And I definitely think stealth killers are going to have a distinct advantage, because not only are you not going to be able to see them, they're going to be able to sneak up on you and do some crazy stuff. There's definitely builds involved with the modifier that I'm looking forward to, and things that you could definitely use in order to work your way around it. I definitely think there's going to be some killers, however, that have a distinct advantage in comparison to others, and survivors are going to have a tougher time than killers. But at the same time, I think any type of modifier, any type of game mode that they bring in is a net boon, because the more ways to play this game, the funner it will be. And I think it's been a long time coming, and I'm really looking forward to it. Granted, I will probably be an evil bastard during it and use every evil trick in my book in order to just freak out people and mess with them. But at the same time, that's the point. That's the fun. It's bringing the horror back into Dead by Daylight. Either way, guys, what do you think about all the things we've discussed today? Do you think my opinions on them are, you know, the right ones? Do you think maybe I've missed the mark on certain things? What is your opinion? I want to know. I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you've got any builds that you would like me to play on certain killers, definitely leave them down below. And if there's certain builds you'd like me to play on survivors, definitely leave that down below as well. I will add that I do have internet issues, but once it's fixed and once we're back up and running, I will continue to bring us more content and more stuff on the channel. Either way, guys, I'll catch you next time.